As Eric introduced earlier, our main presentation is about the Jamf app catalog, the app installer service, and what we've learned. My name is Hugo Mediato. I'm a senior Jamf engineer here at Rocketman, and as introduced, we have some special guests from Jamf. We have Justin Clark. He is a director of product strategy. As you've heard, we've had Bill Smith, partner program manager, and we also have Duncan McCracken, who is a principal architect. He was a late add to this meeting, so we don't have his image up here. But these gentlemen are all a part of teams that are behind the driving force of the Jamf app catalog. So at the end of this presentation, we're going to have a Q&A answering some of the questions that the community has asked. So what is the Jamf app catalog, right? Well, it's just that. It's a catalog of applications that Jamf packages and deploys on our behalf, right? Taking the heavy lifting off of our shoulders as Mac admins and adding it as a readily available resource within the Jamf Pro dashboard. The Jamf app catalog launched 1 year ago this month in March 2022 as a technical preview in Jamf Pro version 10.37. So where we're at now, running Jamf Pro 1044 in this demonstration, which is releasing today, if I'm not mistaken, and over the next few days. But we're just going to set up a basic app installer configuration for those who are unaware. Very simple. In your Jamf Pro dashboard, you select the Computers tab. You select the Mac options or Mac apps option. Select Next in the top right-hand corner of your window. Select Jamf app catalog from the app resource. Select Next, and here's a list of all the applications available in the catalog. We're going to be demonstrating a Zoom client for meetings today. I'm going to go ahead and click Add, and here's the payload. Here you can select the site, the category, and the target group. It's important to note that the target group must be a smart computer group. And for the basic configuration, that is it. It's that simple. So from the end user's perspective, right, we're going to pretend this end user is in a meeting right now. The Zoom process is active, but note the version number. We're running 5.12.9. The user's meeting ends. Say, oh, I'm going to close Zoom. I'll wait 5 or 10 minutes, until my next meeting. But right now in the background, Zoom is actually queued up to install the update. And it happens this fast. They quit the application. If they were to open it 5 seconds later, note the version number. It's already on 5.13.7. It's that easy, it's that fast, it's that efficient. But it's become more robust over the year. Right, so what exactly is happening behind the scenes here? The requirements are you must have a Jamf Cloud hosted server, you must have a Jamf Cloud distribution point, you must have your cloud services connection established, and it's for Mac OS only. How it's working is everything's deployed through an MDM command. So Jamf will deploy a temporary launch daemon, right? It's waiting for the application to close before installing if necessary. This daemon is located locally on the machine in the library launch daemons directory. And as stated, it's only a temporary daemon. So once the installation process has commenced and completed, Jamf removes the daemon from that directory. Packages are sent with the install enterprise application MDM command. And these packages are temporarily located on the machine in the library application support Jamf app installers directory. Again, this is temporary. Once the installation is commenced and completed, Jamf removes it from that directory. Notification settings are also sent through an MDM command through a configuration profile with the notification payload configured. Now let's take a look at that. Let's take a deep dive into Jamf and take a look at the user notification setup. As Chris stated previously, we're going to dive into this. We'll go ahead to the Zoom client for meetings, payload, open up edit mode. And it's important to note here the configuration profile for additional settings, right? Once this is enabled, Jamf is now going to create a custom notification payload for this application and deploy it in a configuration profile to the end user's computer so that notifications for Zoom are enabled and they will present themselves as necessary. So let's take a look at the user notification tab. Here's where we can create a custom notification frequency. Choose as much as you want, in hours, days, or weeks, whatever you want. For this, I'm going to set 1 hour. We can configure our custom notification message. For this, I'm just going to type in Zoom requires an update. I will note I'm going to advise to add a little bit more later. Here we can enable our user deferral limit. Right, I'm going to set this to 1 hour, but for something like Zoom, we might want 2 or 3 hours to give them time to get out of the meeting. And here we can write our custom force quit message. So once the application quits, it'll send in a notification like, hey, Zoom is successfully updated. So they're not overwhelmingly alarmed that, hey, what the heck, my Zoom application just quit, right? I will add a little bit of notation to that here in our end user experience as well. So from the end user's perspective, right, Zoom's open, they're in a meeting. Take note, they're running an older version of Zoom. While this is occurring, oh, hey, Zoom requires an update. So let's pause, let's take a look at this notification for a second. Previously stated, I was going to advise we should add a little more to this notification. We are testing rigorously since we just got the 1044 beta. But I would advise you add a little bit more to this. Zoom requires an update. The application will close, right? Hours remaining 1. That way they know is, hey, this application is going to close in 1 hour. Another thing to note is the icon. This is expected behavior. This is a generic icon populated for Zoom. Some of the other applications will have their native application icon presented here in the notification. But as we continue, right, 1 hour goes by, it's an hour later, the application closes, and then they're going to get that notification. My mistake recording this video, like I said, I was testing a ton, so my configuration profiles got stacked, but that's where you'll see that notification come in and say, hey, Zoom updated successfully. They'll go ahead and open it, take a look at the versioning. At the time of this recording, right, 5.13.10 is the latest version available for Zoom. So now we'll, like I was mentioning, all those logs and those configuration profiles stacking, and we'll just take a little bit more of a deep dive into what's going on here. First, we're going to start with the app installer metadata. On the left side of the window here, you can see that we have the application name, publisher, bundle ID, version, package publish date, architecture, minimum OS. Very thankful for Jamf including all this stuff, right? So we know that the package publish date, that's when Jamf added this. We know that the architecture is universal, which is very important. And we know the minimum OS is 10.10. I hope no one's running 10.10 in their environment, but I digress. The center column, we have the media source URL. Now, this is the URL that Jamf originally procured the package from. They include the developer's media hash for the package and hash type, and then they include their package size. And then they confirm that, hey, Jamf is the signing identity for this package since they've repackaged it. And in the right column, they provide their hash type for security, of course. And then also what else is included with this application. You get the launch daemon, you get your custom notification, and you get your built-in auto updates disabled. And this is important to note as well, built-in auto updates disabled, for example, because this is disabling the application's native auto update feature, allowing the Jamf app catalog and the app installer service to completely control the update workflow for said application. Now we'll take a look at the deployment status. Again, very straightforward. We have installed, in progress, and failed over here on the left side of the window, and then unqualified. For Zoom, for example, if someone happens to be running Mavericks or 10.9 in their environment, sorry, you're out of luck. You can't get the latest version of Zoom. Another important thing to note is the logs for app installers. Like, where are these, right? So Jamf was very kind, and when you want to look at a computer's deployment status and look at the logs, they take you directly to the management tab of their computer inventory record. This isn't necessarily where we want to look for all the logs, but this will show you what's pending and failed. We want to look at the history tab and the management history to go over all the logs that the app installers is actually pushed. So in here, you'll see a bunch of install configuration profiles, remove configuration profiles. You'll get the installed application list. These are all MDM commands that the app installer service is pushing. This is where you're going to want to look if something isn't installing or something's hung up or the application didn't update in the time frame you expected. Another important command to note is the actual install enterprise application command. Here you see the Zoom client for meeting version 5.13.10 is on the screen. If you've configured a computer to receive this and you're not seeing this install enterprise application command for said application, this is where you're going to realize that that's a problem. Okay, why isn't this sending? Then you can rebuild the application, the app catalog, and deploy again, and hopefully figure it out. Some other considerations regarding the Jamf app catalog is the limitations, right? So, for example, if a computer is removed from the scope of an application payload you configured within the Jamf app catalog, it does not delete the app locally on the machine. But if the computer remains in scope of the application payload configured within the Jamf app catalog, but the app is removed, it doesn't automatically reinstall it. However, the next time the application is updated by Jamf within the Jamf app catalog, it will deploy the app back to the machine and reinstall it. Currently, there's no support for self-service, and we also can't control when the deployment happens, right? So there's no custom trigger within the application payload like there is, for example, with a policy. Because this is an MDM command, we can't use the Jamf binary to install everything. Here's a list of all the applications that are available. Now take note that Adobe CC's got a ton, right? Microsoft Office has a ton. This is also available on Jamf's website in their Learning Hub. And you can come here and you can see when all the applications are available, and they do a very good job at updating this page. Some notable applications that aren't available, however, we've got some VPN apps, some endpoint apps, some other apps. Granted, these might be controlled by that application's specific dashboard, their own auto update features. But there are some very important applications that aren't yet available or won't be available within the Jamf app catalog. Now we have our Q&A with Jamf. Gentlemen, are you ready? First big question received is, how do you ensure that the place you're pulling the package from is secure?
I'll answer that. So to give a bit of background to what's happening, we actually have a bunch of automation that is running multiple times an hour, that is hitting the vendors' websites and checking to see if new versions exist. We then, first of all, pull that new media down through a security tool, and then that gets checked for malware and other exploits before it even hits our test environment. Once it hits our test environment, the team pull that apart, create a new patch definition, and then publish that to our test instances. The media then gets converted into app installer media. We do an install and check that the patch definition picks up the new version. We then publish that version to patch. So you should actually see new versions appear in patch before you'll see them appear in app installers because of this extra testing that we have to do. Then the team do a couple of deployments with that app installer deployment. Our test gear has security tools like Jamf Protect running on it, so we can actually check that the live code is secure, not just see if there's any malware in it. And it's only after the app installer behaves as expected and that it's passed all the security checks that we will then publish it to app installers. So generally that can happen, that normally the app installer deployment normally happens within a couple of hours of a patch definition being published. But yeah, there's a lot of manual Q&A that happens.
All right.
Hopefully that answers that well enough.
It certainly does. Next question is, will we be able to control when the application gets initially installed?
It's so as you explained earlier in the presentation, because we're not using the Jamf management framework to trigger the installs, we're using MDM. We have to work around all of the constraints that MDM provides, one of which is we never know when the command is going to get issued to the machine. So we don't have the fine-grained control over the installation experience that we do if we were using the Jamf management framework. Having said that, it's I've spoken to lots of customers, and this is very common feedback that we get back. So it is in our roadmap is how we could address this. So I can't say today how we will or when we will, but we're always looking at ways that we can provide more controls to the installation behavior while still working within the constraints that MDM gives us. So not today.
Yeah, and after talking to Justin about this, we're going to try to see if, because we have a provisioning process where we really like to control when things are happening for many different reasons. But, I'm going to try in the next couple months to see if we can utilize the current app installers to kind of work within our current process. Might be difficult with dep notify and like configuring applications and stuff like that, but it's something I'm thinking about.
Our next question is, will we be able to use this with self-service at some point? We kind of know the answer already.
So yes. Now I've already seen this pop up a number of times in the chat. So at JNUC last year during the keynote, we mentioned that self-service support would be coming to app installers by the middle of this year. We're on track. So like everything with software development, until that actually is shipped and out the door, it doesn't exist. But we are, now that the end user notification UI stuff is shipped, it's pretty much what the team is working on. So it will be the next feature that comes with app installers is the ability to push an app install deployment to self-service. The one thing that I will explain now is to help set the expectations around it. It's the behavior of the initial install. So you'll either be able to push an app out as you currently do via the smart group scoping, or you will be able to publish it to self-service for the opt-in install. From that point on, the rest of the workflow will stay the same, as in once it's on the user's machine, app installers will keep it updated using the end user notification settings that you've published and that sort of stuff. So it's that first step on how it gets to the user's machine. But it is coming. It will be here by mid-year.
Very excited for that. Last is a really big question. It says, what's the timeline for adding all 800 software titles? Or, is there a timeline? You guys have a lot going on.
So the Jamf app catalog, to just add a little bit of extra context to a statement you made earlier in the presentation. App catalog is our catalog of data about third-party software titles and their versioning. So that feeds multiple workflows. So we've got the over 800 live titles in app catalog that we use in our patch management feature area. And then there's a subset of those which we use in app installers. There are titles that we may not be able to add as app installers that we can add as patch management titles. There's a number of different reasons for that, some of which are technical, some of which are not technical, which I won't go into too much. but we will try. We are continually adding new titles. That page that you linked to earlier, which is the release, not only does it have the complete list, but we have a release history, so you can see what titles we add and when. We are focused on growing as many titles to be available in app installers as possible, but we may not ever be able to have every title that we have available for patch management available as an app installer, unfortunately.
Cool. With that, we're hitting the end of our time, and I want to respect everyone's time. So thank you so much, Justin, for joining us. I don't know if we properly introduced Justin at the beginning, but he actually came to us from Mandata, which was through the Kenobi acquisition. And I'll have to say that ever since that acquisition went through and all those patch management software titles got in there, I've seen great things that you and your team were doing. So thanks so much for joining us on this call and all the help you've done to make Jamf even better.